What's something you thought was normal that definitely wasn't? Story 1. When I was a kid, I'd walk to school. When it was cold, I'd come home and my mom would ask, "Why are you wheezing?" I'd shrug because I just thought it was something that happened to people when they were cold. Found out several years later that I had exercise-induced asthma and cold weather was my main trigger. I had the same experience. I also thought I was just slower than everyone else and not as good at running or sports as a kid, as I would wheeze and fall behind in literally every sport that required running. It wasn't until I was almost 30 and finally got an inhaler that I looked back on my childhood and realized that was it all along. I just felt that in my soul. I have a very similar story. I constantly had bronchitis as a kid and other lung issues excused as colds. I was told that I needed to exercise more and to push through the pain of not being able to breathe. They would say the more I would exercise, the less it would hurt my lungs. Nope, I've had asthma my entire life and didn't know until I was past 30, triggered by exercise, allergies, and weather. I also have exercised asthma and literally no one in my life believed it was a real thing. They thought I was faking for attention. Like, yeah, I'm red in the face wheezing and gasping for air for attention. It was really bad as a child. Even getting scared could cause an attack because of the adrenaline rush. I didn't get a diagnosis until I was 13. Then, with an inhaler, life got so much easier as I've gotten older. It's gotten so much better. Like, I almost outgrew it. Somehow, I haven't had to use an inhaler in 3 years. The last time I had to use it was when I was in labor with my son, which I mean is a lot of exercise, which is understandable. I've had my asthma when I was an average weight. I had it when I was 50 pounds heavier than I am currently, and I have it now. It took me forever to get diagnosed because everyone who saw me assumed I was either a hypochondriac who couldn't deal with exertion, or that I was lazy and making up my symptoms to get out of PE. I was 16 when I got my first inhaler, which helps some if I remember to use it before I start exercising. I was at least 25 before I ever did any sort of breathing test where it was discovered that, yep, I have very reactive airways. It sucks because I actually enjoy a lot of types of physical activity, like hiking, volleyball, tennis, swimming. I've just developed a mental aversion to doing them with other people because I was made fun of both for faking my symptoms and for being fat, and I've associated exercise with my asthma attacks for so long. My inhaler helps me do more than I used to be able to do, so I swim and hike when I can, but I still can't push as long or as hard as I want to, or feel like I should be able to. Yeah, I'm sure that's contributing to my weight. There are lots of other reasons why I'm fat, but that's one of them. Story 2. It took me a while to put together that most people notice that they're hungry before it starts to hurt. Is there a subreddit for this? It's the first time I've ever heard of other people with this experience and figured it was some type of abnormality, like having to rely on secondary cues to start or stop eating. Like getting tired or grumpy with digestive distress equals eat. Breathing labored because my belly is invading lung territory equals stop. Me too. I'm in my late 20s and last year at a festival I was feeling kinda bad and talking to a friend and she goes, "Girl, you're just hungry. Let's get you some food." Then I started paying attention and was like, damn, she's right. There are all sorts of sensations that indicate hunger before your tummy rumbles, and you feel like passing out. I'm autistic and struggle with connecting feelings to needs, but it really shocked me that I didn't know how hungry felt. For me, it's not feeling hungry or thirsty all day until around dinner time and then putting food in your mouth because you realize you haven't eaten all day, just to discover you're starving and then eating until you're so full it physically hurts. I have ADHD and an eating disorder. It has a huge impact on my life, and trying to work through it now at the age of 49 seems futile. I struggle with the same thing. I'm 28 and I feel stupid for not being able to eat or drink water like I should. For some people, water is hard to drink because of the lack of flavor. For me, it's hard to drink because literally drinking anything is off-putting if it's not with food. And I will forget to eat for many hours, and by the time I'm hungry, stopping to eat would be an inconvenience to what I'm doing. So I just don't. Then I will be so hungry that eating makes me nauseous, and if I can get past that, then I binge eat. I am undiagnosed, but I do heavily suspect I have ADHD for many reasons. I just wish I had someone to meal prep for me and make me sit down and eat when I'm supposed to. Story 3. Ever since I can remember, I got periodic weird sparkly things in my fields of vision. The rainbow, jagged, circular-ish thing gradually got bigger until my head seemed to pass through the ring, and then it faded. Happened all the time. I would get really cranky, achy, and tired afterward. Always happened when my mom would take me shopping for clothes or groceries. She used to get so annoyed when I wanted to leave after 10 minutes at the mall. In my 20s, I mentioned it in passing. Oh, hang on, I have a sparkly thing. Ugh, I hate these because now I'm going to have a headache. Mom was like, wait, what? Yeah, I have chronic migraine with aura and fluorescent light as a primary trigger. Migraine auras are wild. How do I explain that I basically have a blind spot in the center of my vision which is taken up by rainbow shapes moving around? Luckily, they are a blessing because they appear 30 minutes before my migraine attack, where the pain is quite severe, so I have enough time to take my pain meds and get somewhere quiet and dark. My migraines were infinitely worse during puberty, 14 to 18 years old. I was, however, surprised to hear how relatively common migraines are for girls going through puberty, and in general during hormonal changes, also during periods. This started happening to me right before I'd start my period. No one around me had them, and I felt crazy just trying to explain the weird, blurry shapes that get bigger and eventually take up my vision before going away, and I have a headache. Wasn't till years later that I found out that being on an oral contraceptive was contraindicated because of an increased risk of stroke. So glad the doctors I told never told me that was a thing, and I had to find out on the internet. I started getting these when I was pregnant, almost 2 decades later, and I still have them. Usually every 1 to 3 months. I had conventional migraines with no aura as a teenager. As awful as they are, I'll take the aura kind any day. The headache that comes after the aura for me is way more manageable and doesn't include nausea, light sensitivity, or intense pain, thankfully. I have never once been able to identify any kind of trigger or commonality between episodes. Story 4. I grew up with some fairly questionable dental care that was free through my dad's tribal healthcare. I had a lot of dental problems, likely stemming from my mom giving me apple juice in a baby bottle, as well as enamel that never developed correctly. During the annual dentist trip, my older brother and sister never had cavities, but I always had 4 to 5 or more, so the visits were pretty hellacious. I would complain about the procedures and how badly they hurt. I was 6-ish, but my family was hard-ass and tough-love people, so my complaints were dismissed as whining and worse, told that I deserved it for not brushing better. So I stopped complaining. 27 years later, while going through my 5th root canal, I was shaking and tense and sweating. The dentist kept asking if I was okay, like they always did, and I said, yeah, I'm fine, like I always said. This time, though, the dentist stopped the procedure, pulled his mask off, and said, are you experiencing any pain? You seem like you are. I said, of course I am, it's a root canal. These always hurt terribly, but I'll be okay, let's just push through it. He said, you shouldn't feel anything at all, only some pressure, but 0 pain. Root canals shouldn't hurt. Then he numbed me more, started again, and kept numbing me until I felt nothing. 5 minutes in, he stopped again because I was crying, and he asked if it still hurt. I said, no, not at all, and smiled crookedly through my completely numb face. I thought dental procedures were supposed to hurt. I was 33 when a dentist finally realized I was suffering, but self-reporting I was fine. There was always more numbing they could have done. I suffered for 3 decades because I was told to stop complaining as a 6-year-old. If you feel pain, any pain at all, tell your dentist. 0 pain is normal. Advocate for yourself. Also, don't tell young children to stop complaining about pain because they might listen and you could cause them to hurt for a lifetime. I was punished for being so whiny about things hurting as a child, and it turns out I have a whole connective tissue disorder and soft tissue tears and partial joint dislocations all over my body. I didn't get diagnosed until my 30s, and now I'm starting to need various joint surgeries to fix the damage. I'll never understand why I was told to stop whining instead of getting taken seriously and offered help. I thought I just sucked at life and was weak, and it was my fault I was struggling. So many kids are traumatized by bad dentists and their parents having the whole suck it up attitude. I was scared to death of going to the dentist until I went to one who specialized in patients with dental fear, and my mind was blown when I learned that when you feel pain during a procedure, you can ask for more numbing. It actually makes way more sense because the dentist wants a calm patient. You can't work on someone who's squirming and jittering. I also require more numbing than usual. When I got my wisdom teeth pulled, I was trying to tell my dentist I still had feelings. He didn't believe me and said that he numbed me enough that the feeling of pressure was normal. The bastard then tried pulling the tooth and I screamed. He told me I was being dramatic and I told him again that I felt pain, and he numbed me more before finally pulling the tooth. I damn near passed out from the pain though. Never went back to that dentist. Same. Had a few cavities as a child, and the immense pain after the shot was unbelievable. I too thought that, well, that's dentistry for you. Once I joined the military, I had to have some dental XYZ taken care of, and the dentist told me to let him know if I felt any pain. I hate to admit it, but I was the best recruit there was. Think Forrest Gump. He would administer more and more shots while I would tell him that it hurts, as ordered. But it is okay because, well, normal. He made one last attempt and took a very long syringe through my mouth to my neck. Nope, still in pain. He told me to return the next day. I received one single shot and didn't feel a single lick of discomfort, to the point where they put a wedge in my jaw because I was falling asleep. Zero pain plus probably the most comfortable cot I had been in for months. Afterward, he told me that some folks don't respond to the typical shot, and he gave me the other shot. I wish I remembered the name. Which, yep, money. Anyway, my dental record was amended, and I always got my shot. Never was afraid of pain at the dentist's office again. Story 5. Not trusting your parents and being very careful not to share any details of your personal life, because they'll use it against you. I thought everyone did it. Yeah, I thought all people feared/did not trust their parents till I saw a friend who was bantering to their parents like friends. It sucks that to protect our mental health and boundaries means excluding them from our personal lives or having to build very high walls between us and them. I had this moment when I was 17 and went over to my friend's house after school. She started asking me if I had made any progress talking to the boy I liked while her mom was in the room. I shot my friend a glare that I thought was clearly universally understood to indicate, "Hey, shut up, your mom is right behind us." But my friend didn't stop. Then her mom sat down at the table with us, looked at me with a smile and said, "Ooh, what's his name? Is he cute?" I didn't know other kids could openly talk to their parents about anything like that. I had this issue at university, when I, male, was already an adult, paying taxes and already done military conscription, but had to live with my parents. Had an issue with a teacher, and instead of talking with me, the school's managers went to talk with my parents. Like if I was at an elementary school, and I was still living with my parents, and it caused me a lot of problems. Note, I actually considered for a while making a military career instead of going to university because of this. Oh, Miss Flippy, that sucks. Sending you virtual hugs, if you care to accept them. I hope you are living your best life now and have people you can trust around you. I know that learning to trust is a very hard thing after scary parents. You deserve good people and support in your life. When my now husband and I were dating and moving into a new place, we got into a bit of a fight about who would help us move. I just could not understand why he wanted his parents and brother to help versus friends. Turns out his family is actually reliable and helpful. You don't have to hover worrying they'll take any opportunity to snoop into your private documents and such. I knew it wasn't normal, but I convinced myself that it was somehow still normal. You'd see families like mine on TV all the time. Like, look at the Patakis in Hey Arnold. Everyone knows about families like this. Everyone's family is probably more messed up than they're willing to admit. This was a cope. My family was screwed. Story 6. I thought everyone could make their eyes vibrate at will, but nope. My partner once said he only experiences the normal amount of thoughts of suicide, to which I said, the normal amount is 0, and he replied, "Oh, is it really 0? I don't think it is. There's this thing that people do where they think of bad things to do, and it's called an intrusive thought, and it's believed that people do that as a way of not doing it in real life. So I think some level of thoughts of suicide is normal." Story 7. I used to think everyone had a vivid inner monologue narrating their day, but then I found out some people don't have one at all. It blew my mind when I realized that wasn't common. This also blew my mind, but also I can't picture things in my head. Like I can describe an apple, but I cannot see an apple. So honestly, I wish I had the visual side of it. I'm an avid reader, and I think it would make books so much better. I'm curious about what your inner monologue is like. I think I'm one of the people that don't have them. I'm thinking all the time, but it's not in words. I replay conversations and have imaginary arguments, and I hear words then, but not descriptions of things. I also talk to myself internally, but that's on purpose or intentional. The thoughts that pop into my brain aren't words, they're images and feelings. I thought inner monologues were devices movies used to illustrate what a character was going to do without them saying it out loud. Then I saw a movie where someone was reading someone else's mind, and I was talking to my friends about how that could never happen because how could they possibly hear any singular thought through all the commercial jingle repetitions, the background music, the replaying of an argument, the repeating the last word I said and making fun of how I said it, the thoughts processing whatever I'm currently looking at, etc. Turns out I have ADHD. Every time this comes up, there are people who say they don't trust people without inner monologues because they don't have a voice of reason or something to talk them out of doing malicious things. I don't have an inner monologue, but I don't do bad things because I have no urge to. Makes me really question the actual motivations of people who need to talk themselves out of doing bad things. I don't quite understand how that narrating works. Are you actually thinking, now I'm putting on my left shoe, I'm locking the door, etc. every time you do something? Or does it just mean that you are thinking about something while awake, even if it's not related to what you're doing at the time? Story 8. Apologizing constantly, even for things that aren't my fault. Turns out not everyone feels the need to say sorry all the time. Fun tip, replace your sorries with thank yous. For example, instead of sorry I'm late, try thanks for waiting for me. Or thanks for your patience. This helps out the emphasis on the other person in a positive light, and can help ease your sorries, and keep other people from feeling exhausted with your apologies and the possible feeling of needing to soothe your emotions by forgiving or reassuring you. Obviously, still apologize when you hurt someone or are at fault, but this trick can help change some automatic thought patterns after a while. I do this. Growing up, everything was my fault. If I was sitting in the same room as a family member, talking to them, and they accidentally knocked over their cup and spilled milk everywhere, it was my fault for distracting them. Once I became aware that this was unhealthy, I was able to stop apologizing for everything, and I can sincerely apologize for things that were indeed my fault. Same, except my dad would take it a step further. We'd say we were sorry, then he'd say, don't be sorry, be okay. So we'd say, okay. Then he'd say, it's not okay. So we'd say we were sorry. Don't be sorry, be okay. Okay, it's not okay. I'm sorry, over and over again. The loop never broke until he finally decided to end it. By that time, my brothers and I were crying and at a total loss of how to make it stop. Story 9. Ever since I was little, I would frequently feel my heart kind of flop around and skip beats. I always thought this was normal until a doctor noticed it during a routine physical exam. He asked if I was nervous about being at the doctor, and I told him my heart always does that. Turns out I just have a lot of premature ventricular contractions. My cardiologist told me they're very common, but most people don't actually feel them all the time. Tell me more. I have this. How is it diagnosed? I have been to the doctor a few times with this, and they cannot find anything wrong. Also, I feel I'm being tested when the event is not occurring because it happens so randomly. Does it need treatment, or is it dangerous to health? I first realized I had PVCs because my girlfriend, now wife, was resting her head on my chest at the park and noticed it. I've had them on and off for 20 years now, as far as I know. There's no big worry and no treatment. Apparently it's only correlated with very tiny or perhaps zero increased risk. Also, I've noticed I'd go from having them fairly frequently, sometimes once every 30 seconds, and sometimes even every third beat, for weeks. And other times it went into remission for months or years, all without major diet/lifestyle changes. My cardiologist suggested weaning caffeine, but I couldn't notice that having any effect either way. Fortunately, I don't feel them when they happen. I have to check my pulse, and I haven't detected any for several years. I have something similar, a slightly irregular heart rhythm, where occasionally my heart skips a beat, or it feels like it pauses to make a big beat. I've had it since before I was born. It's part of what prompted a C-section on my mom. Nurses noticed it when I first went in to donate blood, and I had to go get the okay from my doctor that it wouldn't harm me if I donated. Fortunately, it's all fine. I'm currently in a medical investigation for my heart palpitations. They showed up when I was on keto, then went away when I stopped. They came back a year later and they're very random. We're trying to figure out if it's my medication, magnesium depletion, or something else. The same thing happened to me with a keto plus stress plus demanding job with no breaks. It led to dehydration and electrolyte depletion, which led to PVCs. I supplement heavily with magnesium and potassium, but still PVCs. I wore a heart monitor for 48 hours. My PVCs were occurring just within the lower range of concern in terms of percent. My cardiologist put me on daily flecainide, and the PVCs went away like magic. That was about 5 years ago. I've since made some lifestyle choices like changing jobs and reducing some stressors that have improved the PVCs even without meds. Story 10. As someone with horrible vision, it is wild to me that there are people who can see perfectly without any aids. They don't need glasses or contacts. Vision is fine while reading and driving at night, all the time. It's amazing. My boyfriend does that. He just wakes up and can see things. It's so wild to me. I've been using contacts and glasses for 30 years, and he just opens his eyes and can see stuff? Yeah, I have 20/15 vision. It's a weird superpower as I can read road signs before anyone else can. My vision is so good that even though my wife wears glasses, none of my kids need them. I couldn't imagine just not being able to see stuff clearly. I went from one extreme to the other. I had really bad vision, short-sighted with bad astigmatism, wore glasses since the age of 7 or so, got laser eye surgery a few years ago and went to 2018 after it. Absolute game changer. My wife is 20/20, doesn't wear glasses, and I can now see better than her. Story 11. Constant counting in my head. Turns out that's an OCD symptom. Didn't realize it until I was an adult. I count everything, constantly. Absolutely. I have been diagnosed with OCD, and the counting compulsion is insanely tedious. I can't read a book without counting the numbers in the sentences to see if they're even or odd, or recounting numerous of them to make sure I was correct or not. Makes reading take forever. I don't count when I read, but commas and other punctuation will stop me and make me go back to see if they make sense in context. Like if a phrase is enclosed in commas in a sentence, I need to reread the sentence without that part to see if it makes sense as well. Audiobooks have been a godsend because now I can't see the punctuation and can just enjoy the story. So many things that I've done my whole life have turned out to be symptoms of OCPD. Picking at the skin on my fingers, counting, the need to make lists, etc. As a kid, so many of those symptoms were things that my parents constantly fussed at me about and made me hyper-aware of them, which just makes them worse. Once I finally had a diagnosis, I was able to adapt and get control over some of them. I learned recently that it is an OCD symptom. I remember it starting in elementary school. All of the motivational posters all over the room, I would pair up the letters until I got an even number. If the end of a poster was odd, I would add it to the next poster. And when it was even, I'd start again on the next poster. I do this with bulletin boards and storefront signs and used to be bad about it when trying to read. Couldn't ever soak in a book because of the constant counting. That has gotten so much better as I've gotten older. What the fuck even is life? When my daughter was about 8, she noticed that I always tapped things out with my fingers, words and sentences, bird tweets, etc. I had always done it and thought no one noticed. When she asked me why I did it, I had to explain anxiety and other mental health disorders. I'm glad we know now, as I always felt like a stone-cold weirdo growing up. Story 12. When I'm in a room with other people, part of my brain is paying attention to every conversation my ears can pick up all at once. Specifically, it's paying attention to the emotional temper of each conversation, in case someone suddenly starts having a bad time. Turns out most of you just listen to one conversation at a time. My way is actually a consequence of growing up around an explosive parent. Deep down, I don't want anything to happen that will lead to an angry person yelling at us. This also explains why I have a hard time in groups bigger than 10 or so. There tend to be too many voices having different conversations and I get overwhelmed processing it all. If I can't keep up, I feel vulnerable and exposed and things cycle downward from there. I do this too. For exactly the same reasons. It's exhausting. If I've been around a lot of people, I have to go home and crash. Monitoring everyone in a room for their temper really takes it out of me. I also apologize all the time, even when it doesn't make sense. I have social anxiety. I look fine when in these situations. I look social in a crowd, laughing and having conversations, but I'm monitoring everything I say and monitoring facial expressions and voice tones to determine if everything is okay. When I get home, I start beating myself up. I ask my loved ones if I said or did anything stupid. I'm not sure why I ask them because I'm not going to believe them when they say no. I spend 3 days after social events in hell beating myself up, telling myself what an idiot I am, that I'm weird, and that no one likes me. What a failure I am. I do none of this any other time, just after being in crowds, and it's usually just events with people I know, like family events, coworker events, etc. I don't do this in crowds with strangers. It emotionally cripples me for days after. Well, this explains a lot. I do this, but I attribute it to ADHD. In crowded restaurants, my partner has a fun time getting me to tell him what's going on at all the tables around us. But it does drive some people crazy that I can be fully absorbed in a conversation with someone else, insert my opinion in their discussion, and then go right back to my conversation. I always used the phrase people noise. I have to pay attention to people's noise. It could be a problem. So I can't listen to the radio, music, TV, etc. That's people noise. But a lawnmower, a leaf blower, no problem. Sleep right through it. Luckily, my brain never associated machine noise with danger. Machine noise happening means people are occupied, right? It made my first couple of months in the military interesting. I could not fathom how anyone could sleep through the TV or needed it to be on. Like, that's people's noise. That means danger. Same reason as you, by the way. Hugs from another survivor of childhood trauma. Dude, I don't have that ability at all. Very interesting. I can relate though, because I also had explosive parents that would wake me up in a fit yelling at me for something quite often, like when I'd sleep in. My parents also hated it when I took naps and would come in yelling at me when I took a nap. Honestly, it sounds kind of silly, but I remember so many times just waking up to my parents in a fit of rage because I was sleeping and should have been doing chores or just not being lazy. It's pretty awful thinking back though. I became hyper-vigilant to be ready to jump up out of bed if I heard that they were coming, so that they didn't know I was sleeping. I still do it. If someone wakes me up, I'll jump up immediately in a panic state, ready to assess what is going on and defend myself for something I might have done. Even though these days I'm in my 30s and there's literally no reason to do that, I still do. Story 13. PMDD. Every month I would stay quiet about my symptoms because I genuinely thought everyone else experiencing menstruation also got extremely angry, exhausted, hopeless, and couldn't stop thinking about wanting to kill themselves and everyone around them. I missed an insane amount of school and got fired from jobs because I could not function for about 2 weeks out of every month. I only realized I had an issue after seeing someone describe PMDD online. I now use birth control continuously, so no periods or hormonal changes for me. I had a very complete education, but they never talked about specifically what symptoms mentally during menstruation are normal and what is not. So glad I'm not the only one who had suicidal thoughts over getting a period. I thought I was weird for that. Literally no one else gets it. Even my doctor doesn't quite get it, but thankfully agreed to allow me to go on continuous birth control as well. There's no way I'll allow myself to have a week of a period, much less 6 months without stopping again. That was literally hell. Never again. Is there any way to treat PMDD without birth control? I've tried the bar and multiple pills and just bleed every day for weeks to months. It's not healthy, and I worry about my fertility doing that. I think both my mom and I have PMDD, but she's going through menopause, and I'm going through everything she's experienced. It sucks. Hormonal BC shouldn't impact fertility longer term after you've stopped taking it, though I understand wanting to avoid it. My body didn't respond well to being on a combined pill after a while, I think because it had too much estrogen for me. I felt a huge physical and emotional improvement from taking Vitex supplements and applying bioidentical progesterone cream during my luteal phase. I've tried using them both separately and together for extended periods of time, and they both help noticeably by raising my progesterone levels. I still experience a bit of PMS, but it's a relief to not cycle in and out of suicidal despair anymore. Story 14. Constant intrusive thoughts and imagining what-if scenarios of horribly traumatic possible events. I have this, and it's horrible. It robs joy from almost everything. As an example, yesterday my husband and I went on a photo shoot. He was having beautiful pictures taken of himself. I was so into his pictures, and then I thought, that's the one I'll use for his funeral. Holy cow. Where did that come from? That's the thought I will have. My daughter is away at college, and every day I imagine something happening to her. I pray like the Virgin Mary. I don't know what to do to stop this. And yes, I am in therapy. It's normal for random thoughts to pop in, disturbing ones too. normal and natural. The thing that makes it a problem is when we latch onto them and try to neutralize, push away, etc., because that makes it into a big deal, and the brain learns to pay more attention to thoughts like that. You don't need to do anything about thoughts that pop up, just know it's a thought, and it can come and it can leave in its own time without you needing to intervene. I have this, but they don't feel like intrusive thoughts because I have had them so long they just feel normal. Just walking down the street and every person I pass I imagine them attacking me. Crossing the road and anticipating being hit. Walking when it's icy and thinking about slipping and breaking my neck and not being found for hours. Had them all my life, and what scares me isn't the thoughts themselves, but the fact they don't bother me anymore. Whereas intrusive thoughts, God, I hate them. Truly paralyzing and makes you feel like a monster. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you want to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time!